This video is supported by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for your online presence. Hey, Marcus House with you here. This week's Starship production rockets forward while Musk's interview with Tim Dodd provides some interesting insights. The long-anticipated Starliner Orbital Flight Test 2, yep, that mission finally has launched, but how is the mission going so far? We have insight into the largest Mars Quake on record, the launch of Jupiter 3 is also on the horizon, and speaking of horizons, we explore some of the new findings from the black hole that resides at the centre of our galaxy, all thanks to some ingenious humans.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Well, we've got a lot of great Starship updates this week. Our attention recently has been focused on watching activity with Booster 7, but just recently Booster 8's liquid oxygen tank was moved out of the mid-bay, making its way into the high bay. That section was promptly hooked up to the bridge crane and it was stacked onto aft section number 5, the last liquid oxygen barrel section. Now this brings it to a height of 20 rings alone, and as shown in Brenton Lewis's diagram, there is just the thrust dome section now remaining before the entire booster can be completely stacked. Later in the week, the massive methane transfer tube was lifted inside the tank as well. Now, Ship 16 moved into the mega bay last week to begin its scrapping process, as we now all know. Its nose cone was removed and it was rolled out of the mega bay to the build site where both flaps were removed and then the nose cone was cut in half. Along with that, its tank section also left the mega bay and parked at the ship holding area in the ring yard where Ship 21 stood for months. So yes, a brutal end there for Ship 16, and in its place now in the rocket garden, Ship 20, which has now officially been retired. Now, there was a lot of speculation for quite a while there that this could perform a supersonic flight test. However, those rumours have now been completely put to rest due to part 1 of Tim Dodd's second Starbase tour. Elon Musk himself here confirmed that Ship 20 won't fly suborbital and that everything has been learned that was needed prior to the orbital flight test. We also learned that the mega bay should be done in about a month or so and that it will have 10 to 12 workstations contained within. If we compare that to the high bay, that has only 2 or 3. Now Ship 24, of course, is where things get exciting. We learned a lot of new information regarding this ship as well as the changes for future ships. Elon here walked Tim into the high bay and showed off the payload bay door, confirming that the Starlink storage inside the payload section is very similar to industrial pallet stacking, indeed very similar to a pairs dispenser, only a lot more complicated. We also got a great view of Ship 24's heat shield tiles up close. It's great to see these improvements of every iteration. Elon did mention that the gaps between the tiles are intentional and that they should become smaller once the tiles heat up. Even if the gaps don't fully close though, not a great deal of heat should pass through. Underneath is an insulation layer, and then of course the body itself is made with the incredibly strong stainless steel based closely on the 304L grade steel that can withstand heat above 1400 degrees Celsius before melting. Now just quickly, it is worth noting that Tim's video was shot a while ago and Ship 24 has since been fully stacked. In fact, on Monday evening, its starboard aft flap was installed. So yes, all indications remain that the next launch should be with Ship 24, and that will be the first orbital test flight. Well, essentially orbital. Musk did mention that this will cut engines around 30 meters per second less than orbital velocity. This is simply so that if there is an issue, the ship will naturally re-enter over the Pacific. Understandably, being the prototype that it is, the chances that the first flight works perfectly is not super high. The plan is that the Starship makes it to orbit, re-enters in a controlled manner, slows right down to fire up its engines, and then splashes down gently. But I think I just want to drive home here that the very first critical goal for this very first orbital launch is simply that the full Starship stack clears stage 0 without damaging it or any of the support structures. If anything goes wrong in those first few seconds of flight, rendering the launch tower or orbital launch mount inoperable, then it could potentially set the project back months or more. It really is those first few moments after engine ignition that I for one will be holding my breath. We are definitely in for an exciting launch nonetheless. So the future changes to ships is where we get quite excited. The most prominent areas that Elon wants modified are the lifting points and the forward flaps. At the moment, the nose cone has 6 lifting points. However, having those lifting points on the windward side means a lack of heat shield tiles in those areas. As such, something needs to change there that still allows for lifting of the nose cone while having the entire windward side covered in tiles. Additionally, for catching the ships, unlike on the booster where the 2 points are 180 degrees apart, the future catch latching mechanism on the ship is going to need to flip out, and this is because the tiles need to cover more than 180 degrees around the ship. Musk did say that the SpaceX team is still not set on whether the mechanism should pop out or swing out. Regardless, I would certainly love to see a lot of these ideas on paper. There's also a lot of optimization possible for the forward flaps themselves. Elon noted that they were in the wrong location, the wrong position, and also the wrong size, even mentioning a scenario to remove the forward flaps entirely. I'm not sure exactly how this would work, but perhaps SpaceX could be looking at obtaining all of the needed rotational control using only the rear flap design. This, I guess, would be more reminiscent of the initial BFR design that would provide lifting body characteristics more comparable to the booster with its chines. Since this would save on weight and complexity, this configuration is certainly worth exploring as well. At the production site on Tuesday, at least 3 Raptor engines were transported into the wide bay, as Booster 7 appears to have begun the process of engine installation. These 3 engines are all Raptor boost engines too, meaning that they are for the outer ring of 20 Raptors on the booster. There have also been some more since then, so I'm guessing that we've got at least 5 engines now installed in preparation for the first ever booster static fire. We also have some more evidence of this because we see the first methane deliveries have started up again for the first time since the beginning of the year, so this is getting very exciting. Could we even have a static fire before the end of the month? What do you think? Another upcoming change to the booster, also mentioned in Tim's video, is that SpaceX may be leaning towards flying 1 less grid fin. Rather than continuing with the 4 grid fins, the booster may in the future only have 3, with one of them being smaller than the other 2. As we recently saw from an RGV aerial photography shot, a slightly new style of fin was seen which is lighter and smaller compared to the initial design, so we know that SpaceX are working on updating grid fin design already. You may also recall me over the past few months talking about the chines that we first saw on Booster 7. These sat about 120 degrees apart for more adequate drag, which improves the centre of pressure during re-entry, but it was noted that this will also most likely change over time, so I'm keeping a close eye on Booster 8 in that area. Over at the launch site, an intriguing new piece has arrived at the facility. This is very likely an extension or even a replacement for the Booster Quick Disconnect or BQD system. Along with that, a lot of speculative shielding parts which look to form part of the orbital launch mount protection system have arrived too. So now we head all the way over to the Florida Starship launch facility. Thanks to Farial and Greg Scott, we have a bunch of new updates. We see the first 3 legs for the orbital launch pad at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center now vertical. The 6 legs for the orbital launch mount will hold and support the launch table, as well as being a platform to route the plumbing and other lines. Great shots of the tower segments as well, with 5 pretty much complete segments done and a 6th well underway. Huge work continues with the foundations, and the SpaceX building here decked out with new glass getting very close as well. So yes, there's a lot going on there as we gear up towards the first orbital test flight, all hopefully spitting out some Starlink version 2 satellites. A sweet render of the PES deployment for the world to imagine here by Eric X2. Check that out and all of the other beautiful work on his social feeds there if you aren't following. That helps a great deal. And also, before we jump into the next topic today, make sure that you are still subscribed here because I've got a surprise video coming out Tuesday this week. This all focuses on long duration crewed Starship missions, the effect that this would have on our fragile human bodies, and what can already be done to mitigate the associated risk involved. I am super looking forward to that one going live. We've had a load of fun making it, so I can't wait to see what you think. Now, my video last Saturday mentioned the Starlink mission that had gone earlier that day, but right after the video went live, of course, SpaceX launched yet another batch of 53 Starlink satellites, a breakneck launch cadence with these 2 missions launching a little over 22 hours apart. SpaceX then, of course, launched yet another Starlink mission a few days later. More on that in just a second, but first, thanks to Squarespace today for their support of this video. Squarespace is a great all-in-one platform designed to make it super easy for you to set up your online presence to promote your business, your brand, or even yourself. Now, it doesn't even matter if you have any experience creating content online or not. With this easy-to-use interface provided, you will immediately feel right at home making a website with Squarespace. To get started, you just pick one of the many flexible website templates, customized to match your style, and you'll be up and running in no time at all. Let's say that you wanted to do a podcast or blog and then build up a following to provide enthusiastic followers followers with specific information. You can simply make yourself stand out by gathering subscribers with automatic sign-up forms. Then all you need to do is create branded email campaigns for them using the equally useful email template system. You can even create revenue streams with your content by using all of the monetization controls with member areas. Just as a few quick examples, you could sell access to video classes or training sessions for your fan base. You can even give members the option to choose a recurring fee schedule if you are offering a frequent service. If you want to check it out for yourself, just head to squarespace.com/MarcusHouse and save 10% off the first purchase of a website or domain. You'll find that link in the description below. So yes, right after I put last Saturday's video live, the trustworthy Falcon 9 again launched from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station right on time. At first I thought the length of time between the two booster launches must have been a record, but SpaceX have done this before with even less time between launches in 2021. What I did think was a particularly beautiful thing for this launch though was this great clear day. With SpaceX streaming along at 4K, even the very small windows here provide some nice quality footage from the live cameras. What was a little unusual for this flight was that SpaceX was flying a brand new booster. Yep, totally brand new. And this maiden flight for booster 1073 gave us yet again some incredibly beautiful views of the landing, in this case on SpaceX's drone ship. Just read the instructions. Now that wasn't the end of the Starlink action either. On Wednesday in the wee hours of the morning, yet another launch from Pad 39A in Florida. This one though had a few cool little things to mention. Firstly, this Falcon 9 booster was on its third flight, but here is the thing, this was actually its fifth flight. How so? Well, it was used initially as a Falcon Heavy side booster for the Arabsat 6A mission and the STP-2 mission as well. Whether you want to call it the third or the fifth flight, I'll let you decide, but booster 1052 had an amazing uninterrupted feed right down to the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. Not a second of the footage was lost here, which again is demonstrating the crazy capability of the Starlink connection presumably being used here. Now there was no deployment footage again for this one, so it seems that SpaceX are liking to wrap these missions up more quickly as the network continues to roll out. Also, huge news with Boeing's Starliner this week because, yes, we have a successful trip to orbit and this time docking at the International Space Station. This was, of course, the second test flight to complete all of those objectives needed that were not able to be checked with its first failed flight in 2019. Almost 2.5 years ago, that attempt took place, and finally now, the second mission looks to have been performing very well up to this point. Here it was on the pad awaiting liftoff, perched on top of United Launch Alliance's Atlas V. These images by Greg Scott on site, they're just terrific as everybody awaited the final countdown. You just gotta love the wacky aero skirt under Starliner here. It might seem weird now, but keep in mind that Starliner should end up flying on the wider Vulcan Centaur. There's only so many Atlas launches left, so this interesting skirt we may not see that many times. It's currently here to help protect the upper stage from aerodynamic loads during ascent, only needed within the atmosphere of course, and then they just ditch it. So this is the Atlas V's N22 configuration, one that is dedicated only for Starliner specifically. The 2.2 here refers to the booster having two solid rocket motors which are jettisoned at around 2 minutes and 20 seconds into flight, and then two Centaur engines on the upper stage. After the main engine cutoff and stage separation, there was a little bit of a wait prior to the second stage engine ignition. This is where Starliner's docking port cover is jettisoned, engine ignition, and then the aero skirt, now not needed, is separated as well. Starliner was pushed almost into orbit where it separated from that second stage. The final burn came by Starliner itself, with it firing up its orbital maneuvering and attitude control thrusters to put it into its final stable orbit. Now, there were some hiccups here and still awaiting to see how much of an issue this may be. Boeing and NASA stated that 2 of the 12 thrusters cut off too early, meaning others needed to take the load. Despite that though, it did make it to orbit quite fine. So there it was, testing solar cells, radiator systems, and planning to make its way to the International Space Station. Just a little over 25 hours later, after a fairly lengthy process, it was ready to dock as it completed all the lead-up objectives. There seemed to be a few hiccups here too with Starliner's graphic overlays and docking ring, but all that ended up well as they came in for final approach. It all came down to this last step, docking for the very first time with the Harmony module. Beautiful infographic of it here by Bela, also linked in the description if you'd like a copy of this. So yes, slowly it came in, approaching gradually, and there we go. Congratulations to everyone involved. Best of luck with the rest of this mission. It's going to stay docked up here until Wednesday the 25th of May, I believe, before it returns home in the upcoming week. Now, recently you may have seen the news that was breaking on the Event Horizon Telescope teams releasing this image of Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the centre of our own Milky Way galaxy, and the second image of this sort that we've seen released. A few things that I found particularly interesting about this is the scale of our black hole compared to the first that we'd captured and analysed. This iconic fuzzy image from 2019 is of course the black hole at the centre of galaxy M87. These incredible images were produced by the Event Horizon collaboration teams using a network of 8 different radio observatories across the planet, all acting together to produce a single Earth-sized telescope. Now, it is the monstrous volume of data that is particularly mind-blowing to me. In 2017, researchers collected 3.5 petabytes, or over 3,500 terabytes of data from the Sagittarius A star black hole, but it then took 5 years to analyse and compile that signal data together to construct the best images of the black hole as we see it here. Now, what we are looking at in this image is not the black hole itself, of course, as black holes absorb any light that's stray too close to the event horizon, but what we can see is the influence that it has on the matter and the light around it. This swirling disk of matter waiting to be devoured screams around the black hole at close to the speed of light. Now just look here at the comparison of the two black holes. They look very similar in size, don't they? Well, that is only due to the colossal difference in distance. Sagittarius A star in our Milky Way is roughly 27,000 light years away from us. M87's black hole, that is a staggering 55 million or so light years away. The fun reality is that the black hole in the centre of our galaxy is a tiny speck compared to M87's black hole. Our black hole here is over 1,000 times smaller and less massive, in fact, as shown by this great animation by the European Southern Observatory. Another way to look at it is this. Here is our Sun, a tiny speck compared to our own black hole's event horizon in the Milky Way galaxy. This here is the orbit of Mercury, which orbits around 67.8 million kilometres from the Sun. Now, compare this to M87's black hole. This little circle here is Pluto's orbit. A staggering 5.9 billion kilometres is its average distance from our Sun, and it just blows my mind. It's also the reason that the image of M87's accretion disk is more defined. Sagittarius A star appears to be sort of lumpier with these 3 bright areas. This is due to the disk of matter orbiting it in much less time than it would on a much larger black hole like M87. The long exposures needed to get these images results in this extra distortion as well. In the case of Sagittarius A star in particular, the vast amounts of interstellar gas obstructing our view of the centre of our own galaxy also makes this process even more complicated. Now, I highly do recommend the video on Veritasium's channel linked in the description if you want to understand a lot more about why black holes appear as they do. Derek here explains it very nicely. Their insane ability to gravitationally distort light to such a degree is just nuts. You get this crazy warping of the light around the event horizon as shown in this animation by NASA. In this example, we see 2 black holes orbiting each other to demonstrate this bizarre lensing effect, which has always fascinated me. Now, some quite interesting news from NASA, who will be providing some highly awaited updates on the Mars InSight lander. This little stationary lander may not be as exciting to look at as the Perseverance rover, but don't let that fool you. InSight has been making news for all the right reasons, this awesome little station designed to study the interior of the planet. Now, it's since been in the news recently because one of its primary sensors measures seismic activity, and this instrument has measured the most powerful seismic tremor ever recorded on Mars. This Mars Quake has been estimated as a magnitude 5 tremor, which has at the same time provided extremely valuable data that may provide new insights about the deep Martian interior. Here on Earth, of course, a magnitude 5 quake is not that big a deal. We typically have between 1,500 to 2,000 of these recorded each year. But on Mars, this is believed to be close to the upper limit of what scientists have been wanting to capture and analyse. So NASA was sharing this information, including such news, along with discussing the future milestones for the mission. It's of course been another wonderfully successful story, with InSight meeting the goals of its original 2-year-long prime mission. It landed on November 26th in 2018, completed its primary objectives, and had its mission extended until December of this year, 2022. However, it is quite unlikely to make it right to the end of this year, given that its solar panels have now accumulated quite a strong coating of dust. As NASA has stated, unless the solar panels are cleared by a passing dust devil, the mission is unlikely to continue operations up to that point. Yet another amazing vehicle and success story though, similar to the great little Ingenuity helicopter. Speaking of which, all is well again with this little unit re-establishing communications with the Perseverance rover after a bit of a tense dropout period. NASA believes the solar-powered helicopter entered a low power state, possibly due to a combination of the lower temperature and the increased dust in the atmosphere as the Martian winter approaches. The teams now believe that they have determined the cause of the anomaly, as well as a plan to return to normal operations. Now, just a quick exciting Falcon Heavy mention here on the plans for the Jupiter 3 satellite. Originally announced back in 2017, this ultra-high density geostationary satellite has seen several launch delays, mostly of course attributed to the pandemic and global supply issues. The planned launch later this year has slipped once again to early 2023, much to the dismay of the customer. Touted as the world's largest commercial communications satellite ever created, this beast will provide HughesNet services capable of up to 100 megabits per second of download speed. Now this weighs in at an estimated 5,817 kilograms or 9,200 kilograms with the propellant. This satellite is a monster. Now, while Falcon 9 was the original launch vehicle for this mission, it has now been confirmed that this will fly with Falcon Heavy simply due to that colossal size. So yes, there we go, yet another week of space news down. Thanks a heap for watching or even listening along. I get a lot of comments from people telling me that they listen to the videos while travelling, which I must admit I didn't think would be a thing. Do you do that? Let me know down below. Again, remember I have that surprise video coming up on Tuesday. You are going to love that one too, all supported by my incredible patrons and YouTube members listed right there. You are amazing to me each and every week. Thank you so much. These extra videos are all there specifically because of that generous support. There's also a sale going on the merch store right now, which is cool. You can pick up anything from there between Saturday and Tuesday, I think, for 15% off apparently. All of that helps a lot too. The tile in the bottom left today will take you back to the video from last week, talking about Starship of course, but also Sophia and spin launch. Interesting topics, both of those. In the top right is the latest video, and the bottom right, a recommended video of course from YouTube. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.